Welcome to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast, the show for women who are seeking more fulfillment in life and simply not getting it from their current situation. We focus specifically on careers, but hey, we spend a lot of time in our careers, so making changes here will definitely create an impact in your overall happiness. I'm your host, Simone Morris, and my mission is to empower women to succeed. I believe that in order to powerfully own your career, you must decide and claim that you want to sit in the driver's seat. You must know that you deserve better and be willing to not only do the requisite work, but be willing to go out on a limb to ensure your success. Each episode focuses on profiling a leader who is clearly demonstrating ownership of their career. Join me and my guests as we explore career journeys and bring you actionable strategies to use to get into the driver's seat for your career. Because ultimately, your career is your responsibility. Let's get into the show. Welcome to this week's episode of the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. I cannot tell you how thrilled and excited I am for this week's guest. She is an entrepreneur, an author, a friend, and just simply rocking the house. I just know that you guys are going to get so much wisdom from the one and only Minda Harts. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Simone, for having me. Mutual admiration. So thanks for having me today.
Absolutely. Tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you are currently doing.
Yeah, so I call myself a reformed 9-to-5er in a sense, right? And I think you might call yourself that too. But,
absolutely.
I am now an entrepreneur, but I spent 15 years plus in corporate and nonprofit roles. And then a couple of years ago, I just decided that, what's my legacy going to be? Am I going to just add these zeros next to my name, or am I going to figure out how to bring more women that look like me into the fold and make sure they have zeros too, right? So that we all can be there together and lift each other up. And so created a platform called the Memo, and through that created a podcast called Secure the Seat, which you were a guest on, a great episode. And then I have a book called The Memo coming out August 20th. So I'm all things career revolutionary, Simone. For women of color, I feel like if there's not enough people invested in our success, then it's up to us to make things happen and change that system.
How easy was it for you to claim women of color as your tribe?
I was scared, if I could be honest with you, because I was always either the only one working in my environment or one of few. And, you pretty much have to be in this kind of cookie cutter role, right? And even though you're a Black woman, you're a woman of color, but you're almost trying to not be everything but you don't want to bring a lot of attention to it. Growing up, people just say, put your head down, don't cause waves, right? And I think I held on to that format for such a long time. And then I realized, you know what? Yes, I want you to see me. This is who I am. And I felt like there was a lot of content for women in general. But when we break down the layers of oppression, there weren't a lot of people talking about women of color and Black women as we rise up the ranks. And so I felt like that space is crowded and there's not enough people that look like us that are doing this type of work that I know of, right? I know that they're out there, but we're not getting those accolades like everybody else. So I'm like, okay, it's time to do this. But I felt scared. It was taking that risk, right?
Wonderful. So what are some highlights from your career journey that you can share with us?
I would say probably the number one is starting my company, because I really thought that I would be in a traditional workplace for the rest of my life, right? Give me my pension, give me my gold watch, give me all of those things, the 401k. I would be comfortable in being able to do that and travel and have a good time. But what I realized was my soul was empty. And I think one of the best things that I could say to date was making that leap into starting my company. And that to me has been that has been the best gold watch, quote unquote, that I could have ever received. And so the second thing from that, when I left my traditional job, I had saved a bunch of some money, and I created a scholarship for women of color at my alma mater, first generation, which is really important to me. And so it's all about paying it forward. So those two things have been like my career milestones to date.
Wonderful, wonderful. When did you recognize that you were in the driver's seat for your career?
You know what? I think that I've always been in the car, but I think I've been kind of in the passenger seat, right? So every now and then I'm one of those people that, oh, wait, you know how you're driving with someone and if you make a mistake, maybe your driver's ed instructor back in the day, they might grab the wheel, right? So I think I was just going down this path of being in the car and being semi-intentional about my career. And every now and then I'd grab the wheel, but I don't think I took it into effect until my last year in my formal position is when I realized that all of these systemic issues are not right. And I'm going to have to speak on some of these things so that people understand the next person that comes in the door that they might be better set up than I did. And so I think once I realized the power that I have in owning my career and then I was like, okay, genie's out of the bottle. We're going here.
Awesome. So talk to us about risk, because you mentioned several things that really, it takes a lot of moxie to move forward. So how have you handled risk in your career?
So when I first started building the platform for my company, the Memo LLC, I was going out to different people that I thought might be interested in hearing about what I'm working on. And most of them kept telling me, I don't understand why, this is 2015, I don't understand why you want to do this. It will never work. There's not enough interest for women of color in the workplace that would be interested in this. There's so many other platforms that cover everyone and you're niching yourself out. And I kept hearing that. And after you hear that for a couple of years, your faith starts to waver, right? But what I realized is what if I don't do this, right? So it's going to be more of a risk if I don't do this and keep moving forward than just letting someone else tell me that I don't need it. So the risk was I could either believe in myself, right? Or believe in what other people say. And sometimes what other people say, their voices can be louder than your own, right? So I took the risk of listening to myself. And eventually my hustle turned into my harvest. So.
I love that. Minda, that might be the title of your episode.
I love it.
Hustle to harvest. I love that. You have a way with words that really create quite the picture.
Thank you.
So what is your formula, Minda, for successfully owning your career?
That's a great question. I think for me, it's been self-awareness because when I was early in my career to mid-career, I didn't realize the power that I have to own my career. And like you talk about being in the driver's seat, I didn't know that I had the ability to take control of my career. And once I was able to do that through self-awareness, I was like, great. And then add some empathy to that because I had to realize that everything I was going through, being one of the only ones in the workplace, it's not okay. So I had to have some empathy with myself, right? And realize that some of these things going on, I have some choices. Sometimes we think we don't have any choice in the matter. And so self-awareness plus empathy allowed me to really be able to move on and mourn my old career and start into a new one, essentially. Yes.
I'm going to let that just sit there for a moment. Mourn your old career.
Yeah, it's a thing because I thought I was always going to be this corporate Minda, right? I thought that this was the path, this was success. And you do have to sit with the death of what you thought was. And for a while, it was my truth, right? But then I realized that I had to move on to my next life in a sense. And I had to mourn that space because I thought that's all I knew, right? And so I think we don't oftentimes allow ourselves to have that funeral and move on to the next phase of our life, So it wasn't all bad, but I'm ready for the next step.
Absolutely. And it, coming from a corporate background as well, it took me quite a while, I would say over a year to really mourn that loss, having been decades in corporate and really moving to your own company and all that is involved in being your own boss. I mean, it's quite a bit. So absolutely can relate to what you're saying. What resources have you found to be helpful to really help you to own your career, online or otherwise?
Yeah, so I'm a really big advocate of reading. It's fundamental. I've heard it all before, but for me, so many people have been in the trenches. They've done similar things than all of us. All of our paths are unique, but they've done similar things. So I just read as much as I can from a diverse group of people from all backgrounds, and that really helps me be able to continue with the self-awareness, level up in my skill set and my leadership prowess, I guess you could say. But then also too, people like yourself, I think you have to build your network, right? Because the more you learn from other people, so there might be something that you've gone through that you could tell me that I don't have to come up against that hurdle, or when I do, I know what to do. And so I think allowing myself to be a little vulnerable with certain people to say, this is what I'm going through, so that they can pour into me. And I think that has been another valuable tool.
Absolutely. Any of those books that game-changing, I would say, any game-changing books that you can think of that just was really instrumental to you on your journey?
I would say recently a book that I've really, really enjoyed is Dare to Lead by Brene Brown. It's been so good. And it's a culmination of kind of her other books, but it just makes you think about a couple of things like that I take from that is don't listen to people in the cheap seats, because there's a lot of people who talk to you about what you should have, could have, would have been doing, but they haven't even tried what I'm doing. So don't listen to people in the cheap seats. And that's whether you're an entrepreneur or you're in a traditional workplace. And then the other thing, and I think as a leader, that is something that we really can embody in a great tool. And then the other thing is embrace the suck. There's going to be things that do happen, but we just embrace it and then, keep it moving. So I think that book really just helped me think through some of the next steps in the process.
Nice. Can you talk about social media? Because I feel like you're a social media maven. You are out there. So how has that really helped to shape your brand, your career? How can people use the LinkedIn's or, the different social media tools to own their career?
Yeah, it goes back to the hustle thing, right? That turns into your harvest. When I guess started in these internet streets, if you will, these social media streets, people were like, you got to be on all these platforms. And initially I did try almost all of them minus one. And I realized that I just was not getting the best bang for my buck, nor was I enjoying it. Right. And we have to learn how to find joy in certain things. And so I realized for me, Twitter was my best place of engagement. And so the only thing I could really do is continue that engagement on Twitter. And I think the takeaway is find what works for you, right? We're all different. We all have different skill sets and unique slices of genius. And for me, I've been able to get a lot of traction off of Twitter. And so I try to keep the engagement going. Whereas, every now and then I'll post on Instagram or something like that, but I don't get the same results, nor do I expect it. Right? And so, and then for me, secondly, it's been LinkedIn, but you have to realize where your demographic is. Like I was doing some of these other platforms that just the folks that I'm talking to and want to engage with, they're not there. Right. And so, realizing that, the quote unquote cool kids might be getting burned over on this platform. Right. But what's best for me and mine? And I think we have to make some hard decisions and focus.
No, that makes sense. So are women of color hanging out on Twitter?
It seems like they are because, the hashtags and what Black Twitter is very, very vocal. And so depending on what they're talking about, you could definitely get some good traction. But I think the intellectual conversations that you cannot maybe have on like an Instagram or a Snapchat or a Pinterest are happening on Twitter. And I think that even if you don't participate, you could still read in that participation, right? And so I feel like it's a really good place to connect and network and find others who have similar interests than you.
I love that because Kelly Hoey was on the podcast several episodes ago, and she swore by Twitter as well. And, she said Twitter is her drug of choice. And I was just like, wow, I really need to use Twitter more. I'm out there, but I tend to use more the LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. I would say those are my three places that I play. But realistically, when I think about financially, LinkedIn is where it's happening for me anyway, behind the scenes.
Yeah, yeah. And so focusing on that, like a lot of, I wouldn't say a good amount of business or speaking opportunities come from my engagement on Twitter. And so once I figured that out, then I was like, okay, this is going to be the thing that I continue to work. So people will tell me, oh, you're so great at Twitter. I'm like, but when you live in New York City, I'm on the train, I'm walking from here to there. I can have the phone's in my hand all the time. So that's one that it's a real easy thing to do.
Yeah, I love what you said about figuring it out, because I feel like a lot of this is figuring it out. So figuring out that Twitter is what works for you. Just keep trying until you figure out your formula, right?
Yes, absolutely.
You know, I wish that I had the same mindset. I think I love the empathy piece about being kind to yourself, because we're not always kind to ourselves. You know, you beat yourself up. I should be here. I should be doing all these things. So I love that piece of your formula.
Thank you. Yeah, we can be our worst critic at time. And so for me, I think I was banging my head against the wall oftentimes, and I needed to learn how to just be good with me and where I was.
Sure. So can you think about a moment in your career that you avoided responsibility and what you did to overcome that moment?
I'm sure there's a lot.
Some people say no, I'm not that kind of person. No.
Well, I will say this. So I feel like and I have to liken it into the career that I've been most active in, and that was my prior life, is I did not stand up for myself. I was not my best advocate. And I let a lot of people make decisions for me that I did not take agency or have a voice in creating. And I think I didn't take responsibility for my own career at one point in time. And the only person that, yes, there was some issues that were beyond my control, but what if I would have spoken up? What if I would have let the powers that be know that, no, this is not okay to do or say? And if I had any regrets or, not taking responsibility, I think that I waited too late to speak up. And I would encourage anybody to don't be ambivalent about what you want and about your career. And we are our best advocate. And so, as you say, you got to be in the driver's seat.
Absolutely. You got to be in the driver's seat, and you have to have a sponsor. Yes. I feel very strongly about sponsors, knowing that I gained a sponsor very late in the game, and what a game changer it was for me to actually have that additional champion advocate in my corner. So absolutely. Yeah. All right. Well, what advice would you give to someone wanting to own their career?
It goes back to kind of what you said in the sponsorship. I think that sometimes we get siloed in our decision making. And so making sure you have people that you can bounce ideas off of, who can, as I say, talk you off the ledge, when you think you're about to make a good or bad decision, having people that are invested in you and that you're invested in them, and building those relationships out. I think that's the best. When I think about all the good things that have happened in my life, it wasn't because of me. It was because of team effort, and success is not a solo sport. So get you a good team.
Absolutely. And I think, Minda, that ties to the networking concept. I want to share with people the importance of networking. Building great relationships is so key for success. Yes,
absolutely. I wouldn't be here without it.
It's true. It's true. Absolutely. So, okay. Well, tell our listeners how they can connect with you.
Yes, please connect with me at mindaharts.com. You can find me everywhere from that website. And as I mentioned before, I have a book coming out August 20th. And so make sure you support that as well.
Absolutely. Give us a little bit more juice behind the book, please.
Yes. So this book is half pep talk, half memoir about, it's called, again, The Memo, What Women of Color Need to Know to Secure a Seat at the Table. And I talk about the networking, and I talk about sponsorship and mentorship. So all of the things that most career books would have, but from our perspective, what life is like from the experiences of Black and brown women, because oftentimes our career books are not based off of our experiences, and we sometimes become an asterisk in other people's books. And so I'm really excited to share that book with you all.
Wonderful. I am so excited for you. Congratulations on all the great work that you're doing, and you are making a difference out here. Keep doing what you're doing, the Career Revolution. I think I changed the title again for your episode. I like that too. So you'll just have to see what I come up with, but just all great advice and wisdom, and I am so grateful that I consider you a friend. So thank you for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you so much, and just mutual admiration and respect. Much success. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Power of Owning Your Career podcast. It is my hope that you enjoyed today's episode. You can check out the show notes for this episode on the SimoneMorrisEnterprises.org website by clicking the podcast menu. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes and tell a friend or two about it.